the Additional Solicitor General, Mr. Sunil De Silva, he nominated me to the CINTEC Law Committee, and then I proceeded to the Law Committee on a sort of a consultancy basis. In general, after some time, it was recognized that the computer needed a reform in the law of evidence. Eventually, that led to the introduction by Parliament, introduction of the Evidence Special Procedures Law of 1995. Original evidence ordinance, as I said, expected the original source to give evidence. And there were principal rules. So two legal principles on which the entire evidence ordinance is based. Those are, one is the best evidence rule, because the law said if there is to be evidence of any subject, it must be the best evidence available that should come to the court. If there is a document, the document itself must come to court and not a copy. The other rule was the hearsay evidence rule, where it says only the original statement must be given to court. That is, if a person saw something, the person who saw that something has to come to court and explain what he saw. A third party cannot come to court and say, okay, this person told me that all these things were seen by him. Same goes with the document. If a person made a document and confirmed its authenticity, the law expected that person to come to court. Certainly, the law has provided for the admissibility of computer evidence or computer information in court without the need for the actual original sources of evidence to come to court. And thereafter also there have been certain other developments which have basically expanded the scope of these provisions and enable the law to clearly recognize this information. Because almost at every committee meeting, I reported to the committee about the research that I have done and the findings, my own findings on the law and the need for computer evidence and the kind of evidence that may be dealt with under a new law. So I actually worked entirely under the guidance of the law committee, and the members of the law committee made an active contribution to this venture. I think Mr. Kanagiswaran, Mr. Lal Dias, Mr. Upansyapa, I remember they have made an active contribution. Of course, I must mention, all this was headed by Professor V.K. Samarnayaka. Midway through this process, Mr. Jayantha Fernandu was introduced to me and who was a very willing person to assist this committee. So he was sort of drafted into the committee as a person to assist in me in my research. So from that point onwards, he became fully involved in the subject of information technology and law. And after that, of course, you all know that he went on with this subject, and now he's a very internationally recognized person on the subject of computer and law. So after we concluded the project, the process on the law of evidence, then we went on to look into the issue of computers and crime. So we recognized that there are in fact various types of new issues and events that actually may be was not easily recognized and dealt with by the ordinary criminal law. There again, the criminal law developed in a very traditional way. Mostly it dealt with tangible property. That is, the property must be a property that can be felt and touched. Intellectual property rights, none of them were recognized as property. Computer information was not recognized as property. Or a human, some injury or harm done to a human. So again we came up with the same problem, where computers can cause various damage and harm, which are sometimes far worse than what can happen with humans or with ordinary tangible property. So therefore, we recognize the law committee recognized the need for computers and a criminal law amendments or a new law to deal with computer crime. And I completed the basic drafts until the time I left. CINTEC actually did a lot of work, and then he brought this law into a position where it can be actually introduced in Parliament as a law. We followed the English law and thought that the first thing that must be dealt with is unauthorized access, because the way to prevent further offences is being committed is to prevent access. It's like saying you have to come into a house in order to commit housebreaking or mischief. So we make the prohibition at the door. So you cannot enter the computer without authority or permission. So once you enter the computer with authority or permission, or even without computer and computer, then denial of information, introducing viruses, providing false information, and various other types of activity, the criminal or harmful activity were identified, and then special provisions were made to deal with each of these items. Using a computer to commit one of these offences, one of these harmful acts, becomes an offence itself, and then the harmful acts are identified, like denial of access, providing false information into the computer. It's like that, various types of acts that were deemed harmful.